What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I am your host, Claudia Castro. I got my co-host, Tim Park. What's going
Hey fam,
on, Tim?
what's going on?
What's up? What's up? We're already midway through, almost at the end of August, going into fall. Isn't that crazy?
I know
Uh,
that's crazy for sure.
Nuts. But we have a great show for you guys today. But as we always do, make sure to like this video, subscribe, follow us on IG. We're on here every week, dropping gems, either through topics like we'll discuss today or having guests on, dropping their knowledge. We will have a guest next week, actually talking about private money lending and how to use OPM or other people's money. So that's going to be really, really exciting. But today, we're going to talk about the hot trending topic, which is interest rates.
Yep.
And they keep rising. The Fed's increased the interest rate. I think it was last week. I think it's is it 7.25 now or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
yeah, and it's gonna keep increasing. Like I think sometimes it goes a little bit lower, maybe 6.75, and but I don't see honestly them lowering to the 2.5 or whatever it was. So we're gonna unpack that. I think a lot of people are specifically millennials or people my age, who maybe waited to buy a house and
hmm
are now sort of being like, back in when COVID happened, people are like, well, I'm just going to wait until things die down. And now people
hmm
are like, well, I'm just going to wait until, you know, the rates go low. It's just never with real estate, it's never going to be the right time. But once you kind of learn the cycles or you just kind of
hmm
educate yourself on investing in general, because whether you're buying a house, I see that as an investment either way.
100%. Yeah.
So we're going to unpack that and what kind of strategies you can use, or sort of things that we're navigating as we're looking to invest ourselves, whether it be a personal home or an investment property.
hmm That's right. And I think, you know, like you said, a lot of people are afraid to buy a house right now. And some of the experts are like, when the rates were low, everybody was buying, but also um, the prices of houses were increasing because the rates were so low and there were so many people buying at that moment. So you'll see that influx again once interest rates may come down, but they might not come down. They're probably not going to come down to that low again for a long time.
Yeah,
But as they come down slowly, there's going to be an insurgence of people trying to purchase again because they've waited, but that just means the house prices will go up again. So that's why a
right.
lot of realtors and people in the industry are saying that you should buy now just because you'll buy a house at a cheaper price than you would than if the rates were low. So that's
Right.
kind of one thing, like some of the on the retail side, people are trying to educate, sellers on or homeowners on right now.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the issue is also inventory. There's
Yeah,
not much.
huge.
So even if people did want to buy, it's kind of like, especially if they're looking to buy their, at least on the retail side, right?
hmm
Like, and this is why I do believe like wholesaling or learning how to market to sellers or motivated sellers is so key, because you don't rely on the MLS or things of that nature, Zillow, to look for deals. You know
hmm
how to source your deals. So just strictly talking about on market deals, there's not many, especially if you're looking for a very particular property. That you're kind of limited to your options, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. And then when the inventory increases and prices rise up, it's like,
Sure.
well, maybe you don't have the money then, and so people are kind of
Yeah.
stuck. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just it is difficult. It's at interesting times right now, but this is in a way kind of we've talked about it is a recession. People are being laid off. You know,
Yeah.
things are shifting, and so people are sort of freaking out a little bit. So it's kind of figuring out what can you do at this moment. And I do think the people that stack their cash and invest over the next year or two, I think are really going to be the ones coming out on top.
Yeah.
Um, like
Yeah.
we talk about the '08 crash
Mhm.
and people who bought then who are like, oh, I should have bought more. Um, and so this is what we talk about, like just kind of being a student of the game and learning and
Mhm.
never stopping learning because there's always so many things to take away from it. But I think, we've even talked about the commercial office space
Mhm.
issue, the lack of um, people or just people not utilizing the office spaces, how they're repurposing the office
Yep.
spaces. And then
Absolutely.
also on the commercials at multifamily, people that had maybe bought an adjustable rate, right?
Mhm.
Back in 2020 at 2.5, but now it's gonna readjust to the current market rate,
Mhm.
and now people are having to walk away from their properties. So it's really weird times right now. But signs like that, we look at it as like, oh, those are motivated sellers. We
Mhm.
should contact them directly. Um, so I think there's power in that and like what we do in knowing how to market, cold call, SMS, and
Yeah.
reaching out to people.
Yeah. I totally agree because we're, kind of what we do is totally different than like what retail does, and then getting in the commercial side of things, we kind of see what interest rates are doing there, and then even new construction on purchasing land, but you you, there's still hope for people in retail just because they have different incentive programs, FHA and all that. But
Right,
for us, kind of cash is king. Whoever has cash and can buy properties is still going to come out better in the long run in the future for, um, for them, for their investment, right? So I think during this time, a lot of investors will be making a lot of money because there's not a lot of buyers out there that are flush with cash, right? So I think
right,
that's an important aspect to look at in your business because you're like, cold calling and you're doing everything you need to do to try to get a house or a property under contract, and then finding the right buyer for that. But because there are buyers buying right now for sure for these
right.
properties, we see it every day. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, we talk about BlackRock, like those big hedge
oh
funds.
yeah, hedge funds, yeah.
People are still buying, and that kind of tells me, I'm like, huh, the media is saying, oh, freak out. But then we have these corporations
Right,
buying money.
right.
It's really what they want. I think you had posted or something about a percentage that they own, like over 50% of like the housing in the United States,
Yep.
or like I think it's even higher,
Yeah, it's over
which is
that.
insane. Um, which is insane, which is why like we should really like figure it out. Like if you really do want to get investment, because this is the problem. People maybe watch what we're like our episode or other episodes, but then they don't do anything about it. Like join a community, join a course, whatever it is, or like ask around, like get a mentor, like just see what things you can do because you don't want to be stuck. I certainly don't, which is why like I'm really actively looking more on the creative side to avoid these interest
Mhm,
rates, because I'm able to get in front of sellers directly. So if I can get a deal that makes sense that the seller is open to a creative finance deal, which for those who don't know, creative finance deals could mean like seller finance, where you carry back the loan. So kind of like the seller turns into a bank in
mhm,
that way. Instead of working with a bank, we qualify with the seller and we pay the seller every month off specific terms. And then there's also subject to, which is a little bit more complicated. That's, if the seller has a mortgage on the property already, there are ways for you to acquire that. So it's a lot more technical. We definitely did a video on that. I'll see if I can drop that
mhm,
in. So there's different methods and even more methods that you can utilize, especially during this time to acquire properties. But I mean, even Airbnbs, right? Like or birds, like people that barked heavily. I feel like when I got started in wholesaling, like Burr was like everybody wouldn't stop talking about that.
I know.
And I think we even did an episode because we were like, oh, maybe that would be should be something we'd consider. But then it's like if I'm trying to do a Burr now, like or if I bought a property and then like I'm looking to do a Burr or like refinance, I'm not going to
Hmm.
refinance. Maybe I
Not
want to do a
now.
HELOC,
Nope.
and that's
Yep.
another
Yep.
strategy that you can use. So it's you have to learn these strategies you that you can utilize. So it's like join a community, hire a real estate mentor or somebody that
Hmm.
knows what they're doing because it's otherwise the thing is like you don't want to be left behind if that is your goal to get into real estate, invest.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think it you can never go wrong with investing as long as you kind of know what you're looking out for and running the numbers.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people getting into real estate investing need to think about the long game instead of the short game. In
Correct.
what you're
Not the
in.
get
Yep.
rich quick scheme.
Exactly. I know people might be doing it, part time or they have a full time job. That's fine, but just make sure you have kind of a long term focus and maybe eventually turning that into a business and how you can do that and by joining these communities and trying to avoid the pitfalls of things that could hinder your business going forward will help a lot as well too. So because like you said earlier, real estate has its cycles, and this is one of the cycles that it has to go through. So, and people that are in the community have seen these cycles before, so they kind of know what to look out for, or have some kind of advice that they can give you to better improve your business that will that fits for you and what you're trying to do.
No, absolutely. I think you bring up a good point talking about the cycles. And for those wondering, a really great book actually that was recommended to me by a mentor was is Emerging Real Estate Markets by David Lindahl. If you get the chance, just put in Emerging Real Estate Markets. That book literally talks about all the cycles. There's a seller cycle, there's a buyer cycle, and things to look out for when you want to invest in a market, in an up and coming market,
Hmm.
where you can really see profits. So if you see, job growth coming or like development occurring, where it's approved by the city or whatever, that's when you want to buy something that's a little run down. Ads is where you do a value add, hold on to it for a couple years, and then right before it gets really, really hot, that's when you do a 1031, things of
Hmm.
that nature, which is another strategy that you can use if you do already have a property, maybe that you want to acquire, but it makes it a little bit difficult in terms of like what that is. But so maybe we can definitely do a 1031 um,
Yeah.
topic or episode talking about that. But I mean, yeah, it's people need to definitely get to work. I agree with Camille. It's a really interesting time. I'm seeing more and more people
Hmm.
either who have lost their jobs or again, it's just kind of navigating what that is. And if you do have a job, like I think setting aside money for investments is really, really key.
Hmm.
Um, and having like a really good ecosystem, like what you having your money work for you. So I think you had mentioned more and more people are renting as well because
Hmm.
they can't afford. So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like you gotta look at your expenses and what you can afford. And if getting a mortgage right now, because people just talk about buying a house and like the mortgage, but there's more to that, right? There's
Hmm.
not only the PITI,
Hmm.
um, but there's also the utilities. But there's like, what if you have to fix the property?
Hmm.
Um, Issues come up all the time, and people don't really account for that. So there's a lot of these little things that people just walk in and don't know what they're doing, kind of thing. And so it's important for the agent, obviously, to or the realtor to educate them. But sometimes the realtor is fairly new too, so it's
Yeah.
just it's a tough situation.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just I think in talking to some of the sellers that we've been talking to, I know that they have a certain expectation of what the market's doing right now, and I fully don't think they understand what, especially how that affects them and their house, and so we do have to be patient with some of these sellers and not get frustrated because they are trying to sell their house at the highest amount, even though that could
Right,
be uh, the same as a renovated house. So we can't, we just got to keep following up with that person, let them go through their pain points for that, and then be there when they're ready to sell at the price that we want. So, and some people
right,
are never at that point, but I think it's just important, like Camille said, you got to roll up your sleeves and put in the work, and that's part of that, right? And part of
right.
going through that process.
No, absolutely. I mean, you bring up a great point. It's just people have to adjust. Like we talk about business is pivoting, right? You have to
Hmm.
know how to pivot and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like for so many people, they're in very uncomfortable situations. So what are you going to do? You're just going to sit and complain about it, or are you going to get up and learn and see what you can do and ask around? So um, I don't know what the long-term effects will be of
Mm,
this. Of these interest rates and what's going to do moving forward. And we have AI coming in too at the same time,
yeah,
taking people's jobs. So it's just such a weird time
it's a weird time.
in this in the world in general. And so it's just obviously you don't want to be consumed by that. You want to just focus on what you can control.
Hmm.
Um, but well, interesting thing I think we were talking about before we hopped on here is the commercial loans.
Hmm. Yeah.
So commercial loans, obviously multifamily, 5 units and up. If we wanted to buy an office space or industrial, whatever, there's anything commercial, right? Um, the commercial rates, and I think we were talking to somebody, the commercial rates are actually lower
Hmm.
than I think than residential. I think somebody said they used a commercial loan and it was like maybe 5% or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference. Like people like 5 to 6%, like we're underwriting deals to see if it makes sense. And
Right.
just boosting it up to like from 5 to 6.5 is like even 5 to 6 is like a huge jump. It kills deals just
Yeah, it does.
going up like
It
that.
does.
So that may be something if you can qualify for a loan, maybe that is a route you want to take. And you can definitely do some research, reach out to lenders that are in that space. But that's really interesting. I mean, that also has me think like, oh, maybe I should consider buying or using a
Hmm.
commercial loan instead, right? And buying
Right.
a multifamily or whatever the case may be.
Hmm. And they have, also in a commercial space, they have government loans that you can use to actually help with that, so you don't have to pay that much down. Same with, like
Isn't there like
FHA
a
for renters.
DSCR loan as well, which is a
Yeah,
lot more
exactly.
technical?
Right,
Um,
right,
I
correct.
think it measures based off the cash flow.
Hmm.
Um,
That's correct.
the borrower would have to pay against their current debt uh, for the property itself. So that's a little bit more advanced, and we could definitely
Hmm.
do a topic on that because I'm still learning about it too. So I didn't want to just do it just without
Yeah.
utilizing it or like knowing how it's used. But that is one that I think a lot of investors and are actually taking advantage of. So that may be something instead of going like an FHA route, they can
Hmm.
look into a DSCR loan.
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, like, if you educate yourself on these different ways, especially like in commercial and whatever, if it's residential, that's fine too. But just going off of the commercial aspect, there's a lot of programs out there that help you actually purchase that, especially with the rates being at what they're at right now. Um, you know, there's of course a lot different sectors in commercial, and we're mostly focusing on multifamily sector. Some like we talked to Steph
Right,
a couple days ago about the multifamily and how it's more repurposing uh, existing properties into
right,
multifamily, right? So I
right.
didn't really know that was a thing to repurpose, in regards to ADUs and stuff like that. So that was really interesting to find out. So as you navigate these waters in commercial, you'll understand like there's different avenues and different niches that you can focus on. And, once you kind of get a grasp of how to analyze a deal and what uh, investments or funds can come in for that, whether it's private investor or programs, incentives that, you can get a loan on, it's really cool to kind of see what options you have to invest in commercial.
Absolutely. And I think Camille, you said it best. There's so much to learn, but it never gets boring. That's why I love real estate. Is it keeps me humbled. It keeps me humble for sure. Keeps
Yeah,
me on my
100%.
toes. It like I learn something new every day. Like we were in an office doing content the other day with Stefan Irvin and learning like I learn something new every day. Whether and I think this is why like your network and asking and being around
Mhm.
people that are in that space is so key because um they can add value to you by just having a conversation and like what they're doing, what's happening in their world. And but don't think that you don't have value to add either.
Yeah,
I learned too in that moment the other day was people aren't really familiar with wholesaling.
yeah, they
Like
aren't. I was
when I
surprised
asked
too.
when I asked like what's wholesaling, I was like, you tell me what's wholesaling first.
Right,
And like
right.
their explanation, I was like, whoa, that's totally not what wholesaling is. You're talking about wholetailing.
Yeah,
Or I think he was maybe doing the novations possibly. I think
right,
that sounds
right.
more of a novation deal, but which you can wholesale, which sounds like we should definitely have a topic on specific on novations. Um, but yeah, I think it's so interesting just having conversations. It's not even a thing of
Yeah.
um, being like forcing things or whatever. It's just like just talking about what you do. So I think who you surround yourself with is really key. And during this time, you want to surround yourself with people who are really in the business, who have been through it, and kind of know
Mhm.
what to look out for. So that's it's really interesting. And another reason why I love real estate because there's so many avenues you can take, like you said, so
Mhm.
many routes. And with especially what I love about commercial specifically is like it's so you can get so creative. There's so many things you can do and like how you underwrite a deal or how you structure a deal to
Mhm.
the things you can develop. So it's really amazing, which is why it's like yeah, this market is crazy, the interest rates are crazy, but because of the knowledge, I think overpowers anything, right? Just
Mhm.
focus on you, focus on your niche, or focus on one thing really well and do it well, and the rest will kind of work for itself.
Yeah. 100%. Um, and that's what, another thing when I got into real estate, it just kind of opened the door and window and everything else that goes into it. And I was just, you're constantly learning. You're constantly, improving on yourself. You might take two steps back, but one leap forward. And because you learn so much doing so. So I piggyback on what you kind of say is real estate just has so many avenues to jump into, but also to make your bag, right? To make money.
Get the bag.
Exactly, exactly.
I love it. Well, I think we definitely touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
With the interest rates. And I think the biggest thing is just educating yourself, ask around, don't rush into things, have it make sense, and reach out to us or reach out to anybody in the real estate
Hmm.
network that you know, but don't be afraid to reach out to us. If we don't know an answer, we're happy to point you in the right direction or point you to somebody who we trust and value in terms of the knowledge. So really hope you guys got a ton out of this. As I mentioned, next week we do have a guest. She's been doing amazing things, focusing on private money lending or just lending in general, and how to utilize other people's money when acquiring deals. So I think you will
Hmm.
definitely won't want to miss that. But appreciate everybody who tuned in. Camille, we're gonna have to get you on the podcast for
Yeah,
sure, talking
100%.
about your journey, because you're always showing the support, so always appreciate it. But hope everyone has an amazing weekend. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.